Matt here with Mobile Solar Consulting in Stuart, Florida. This customer had his solar installation done elsewhere for his Airstream, but it caught fire twice. So we're here to fix it. We're gonna take a look and inspect the system, run a load test. We'll bring you along with us, check out any connections that are getting too hot, as well as any other issues we see, let you know what's unsafe and what needs to be fixed, and then show you what it looks like when we're done. We're also going to fix several other smaller issues along the way, so we'll point those out to you too. First things first, let's take a look at what started this fire. Down here we see the cover for the Class T fuse has seen better days. This is a 300 amp fuse and a 3000 watt inverter, so this is already very undersized. We've also got a switch for the inverter. That's the 300 amp switch. That's very tight fit. I would not suggest putting a 300 amp switch on a circuit that's going to pull about 250 amps. So you'd want to upsize the switch if you're going to put one on at all. In this case, we're just going to remove it because it's not necessary to have a switch to turn off the DC power to your inverter. The main switch is sized properly, but you'll notice it's still smoking hot after just 20 minutes of running the air conditioner. And the main reason for this is either over-torqued or under-torqued connections on the backside, or the fact that you have to make your connections on the switch and then screw it into the wall. So after you've made your precious electrical connections, you're mangling with this switch and trying to get it to go into the right spot, and you're loosening and moving those connections around. So that's why we always use the Easy Mount Pro installer switch. You screw the switch into the wall, make your connections, and then you pop the cover on. So that's what we're going to replace this with. We're also going to replace the fuse block, get a nice fresh, not melted fuse block in there, and use a 400 amp Class T fuse as the main battery fuse, and then have a 300 amp Class T fuse for just the inverter circuit, and no switch on the inverter circuit. So any switches, fuses, breakers, they're going to heat up naturally. So it's important to not have too many of them in your system. The next thing we notice is there's 7 wires landed on the shunt. So this area is also overheating, and there's 4 connections on the fuse. So we're gonna put in some positive and negative bus bars to space out these connections so no one lug is overheating. You'll also see that a lot of the wires, like the ones here on the solar controller, the positive and negative are very, very close to touching each other, and they both rub against sharp metal corners. So we're gonna be not only spacing these items out a little bit, but also just rerunning the wires with a tad more slack and covering them in split loom to make sure they're not run over any sharp metal corners. And where they do come close to any metal, they're covered in a conduit. One more piece of the puzzle is the DC-DC charger is not charging very quickly, and they're wondering why. So the first thing is that they have just a battery combiner. So we recommend against these whenever you have lithium batteries. It's a passive device. It doesn't modify the current or the voltage. So we're going to replace this with a DC-DC charger that's going to protect the alternator and charge the lithium batteries exactly as they want to be charged. But there's another issue with the DC-DC charger. Let's go take a look outside. Looking down here, we see the other issue with their DC-DC charger is there's only a positive cable here. There's no negative. So that leaves the question of where is the current traveling back to the battery on the negative conductor? It's probably using the hitch ball for the most part. Not something I can clamp with my meter, but fairly confident that that's where the current's traveling through. The hitch ball is not designed to carry current, it's designed to carry your trailer. I'm sure that some current is also traveling on the negative wire within the 7-pin, and we did clamp the chains and notice there is a tiny bit of current traveling on them as well. So any piece of metal, current will travel back through until you give it a reasonably large conductor, then it'll mostly travel just through the negative conductor. So we're going to be taking this also away from this area where it travels through a sharp metal edge on the trailer. Probably going to put in a flush mount connector on the customer's bumper so it's nice and easy for them to connect into instead of something flopping around too much. All right, so we're just about finished with fixing up this system. The first thing you'll notice is that we've removed the Blue Sea switches and we've installed just one, our Pro Installer Easy Mount switch, which lets you mount the switch to the wall first and then secure the wires to it. So this is a 400 amp rated switch and it's going to easily carry this amount of current. We've also got a 400 amp rated Class T fuse on a new, not melted fuse block. We have no more connections on here than are absolutely necessary, so just one connection on each side, and then the same with the switch. We're not overloading the amount of connections on there. We don't have 15 connections on our shunt, which is on the other side here. We've installed bus bars to spread out all the connections and make sure that nothing's kind of overheating or stacked too tall in one place. We did leave the Blue Sea switch here. This is just for the solar currents. This is not carrying much current at all. We normally would put a high voltage solar breaker on here, but all the panels on the roof are actually in parallel. Once we finished remaking all the connections, we then run a load test, which is where we turn on all the loads we can. The air conditioner, maybe our heat gun, lighting, all that sort of stuff. And we check the temperatures of the wires. So how we do that is, one, most importantly, just touching with your finger, not on the metal part of the connection, but just near it with your fingers, making sure you can hold them for 2 Mississippi in any spot. And then if you can't, obviously that connection needs some attention, whether that's recrimping the lug, retightening the lug onto the bus bar or the fuse or whatever it needs done. But then after that, we will use our infrared camera and swipe it along the compartment here, make sure there's no hot spots while we're running that full load. This is just kind of a double check of any connections that we can't easily touch or access. Once we're done with the load test and checking that there's no hot spots, we then put split loom over all the wires that are crossing over any metal edges. We use cable clamps to secure them in their locations so they're not flopping around and they don't hold tension. And we use zip ties to make it look neat. So that's gonna be the last step. Not sure if we're gonna get a chance to film that or not, but this will look prettier when it's all finished. We also ran the missing negative cable from the Airstream and through the truck. We've got our Anderson connector here that plugs into the flush mount connector, which is installed on the truck's bumper. And we've also got a fan on the Orion on the interior so that it stays nice and cool whenever the customer is charging with their DC-DC charger. If you want to make sure your camper van or RV's solar system does not catch fire, make sure to call us.